Good morning. Welcome to the webinar Challenges of Online Assessment in Higher Education, Experiences and Guidelines for Improvement. My name is Marilena Maniaci. I'm an Italian professor, member of the Italian QA agency's governing board, so ANVUR, and also a member of the ENQA board. And I have the pleasure of hosting this webinar on behalf of the partners of the remote project. Thank you very much to the audience for taking the time to watch and hopefully to participate with comments and questions. And a very special and warm thank you to all the colleagues and participants in the presentation and discussions of the results. As you can see from the program, we will have only more or less 1 hour available, and we will do our best not to overrun the time. And for that, I ask the collaboration of all our speakers to keep the speaking time so that we have time to answer the audience's questions and comments that you can ask in the chat box. This webinar is integrated in the remote project, an Erasmus Plus project started at the beginning of 2023, which is now coming to its end. The project is about assessing and evaluating remote learning practices in STEM areas, has 7 partners, higher education institutions and QA agencies from Italy, Portugal, and Spain. The European Association for Quality Assurance in the European Higher Education area, so ENQA, kindly agreed to support the dissemination of the webinar through its institutional channels and delegated me as a board member to give a short opening address. ENQA has been engaged with these issues for several years. In 2018, the document Considerations for Quality Assurance of E-Learning Provisions was published, which offered guidance to agencies and institutions on how to assure quality in digital and blended education. That publication provided an essential starting point. Yet, as we all know, the landscape of higher education has evolved dramatically since then, and this evolution calls for a renewed reflection on how quality assurance frameworks can remain relevant and supportive in this changing context. Therefore, ENQA is very interested in projects like Remote, which help deepen our understanding of what quality means in the digital age. And now we move to the core of the webinar. First, we will discuss online assessment from evidence to guidelines. Domenico Augusto Maisano, full professor at Politecnico di Torino, will present the results of a consultation to teaching staff and students about remote assessment. Maria Manatos, research coordinator of the Agency for the Assessment and Accreditation of Higher Education in Portugal, ATRES, will share some best practices from higher education institutions and QA agencies. And I myself, as a representative of ANVUR, will present and discuss a set of standards and guidelines for remote assessment, which can be used by institutions and agencies. At the end, there will be a short space for some questions and answers. So please, Domenico, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marilena. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this webinar. The activity I'm presenting is part of the remote project and was conducted in the first half of 2024. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Starting from a literature review and interviews with experts and professionals, a questionnaire was developed to investigate the gaps in remote teaching and assessment, where gaps were defined as weaknesses, critical issues, or challenging aspects in this area. The questionnaire was distributed to hundreds of students and lecturers across the 4 European universities participating into the project. And now I'll briefly describe how the questionnaire was designed and administered, and then summarize the results from both the student and faculty perspective. Next slide, please. First, we identified the 5 main dimensions of potential gaps in remote education through literature review and expert panels. These dimensions are resource availability and accessibility, technical responsiveness, training, online assessment, and social dynamics. Each dimension includes 3 aspects that are potentially problematic. For example, the online assessment dimension includes adequacy of assessment methods, and quality of evaluation feedback, while the social dynamics dimension includes students' sense of community and academic integrity. Each aspect was considered from two perspectives, that of students, which will be denoted by the letter S, and that of lecturers, which will be denoted by the letter L. Next slide, please. Each of these aspects was translated into 3 questionnaire items, both for students and lecturers. This slide exemplifies the items concerning the social dynamics dimension from the student's perspective. As you can see, the items are generally formulated in the form of statements or questions about potential problems. And respondents are asked to express the rating on a 7-point scale, see the last column, where 1 means no problem and 7 indicates a serious problem. Therefore, the higher the rating, the more severe the gaps. Next slide, please. This other slide exemplifies 9 questionnaire items related to the training dimension from the perspective of lecturers. Again, for each aspect, 3 corresponding items are formulated. Respondents, again, give the rate on a 7-point scale with higher scores indicating more severe gaps. Next slide, please. And let us now focus on the questionnaire administration. We use the online survey platform Lime Survey due to its flexibility, reliability, and affordable cost. The data collection took place in February 2024, involving 4 European universities, Politecnico di Torino, Universitat de Girona, Universidade Internacional de Catalunya, and Universidade de Minho. Each university distributed 2 versions of the questionnaire, 1 for students and 1 for lecturers. We also translated the surveys into each university's local language, Italian, Catalan, Portuguese, so that participants could respond in the language they were more comfortable with. Next slide, please. And we receive a pretty large number of respondents, 553 students and 176 faculty members completed the questionnaires across the 4 universities. And after some data aggregation and elaboration, which I will not present here, we identified a reference indicator for each aspect, which reflects the intensity of the gap. Students' data and lecturer data were analyzed separately, and details about the analysis and aggregation mechanism can be found in our open access paper accessible by scanning the QR code on the bottom right corner of the slide. So if you want, you can do it right now. Next slide, please. Let us now focus on the results from the student side. The 3 biggest gaps identified by students were the sense of community in online learning, academic integrity in remote exams, and the adequacy of feedback on assessments. Probably remote learning makes it harder to feel connected to the university community. It also seems that ensuring honesty in online exams can be challenging. Finally, it seems that students sometimes do not receive suitable feedback on their preparation. Another interesting finding is that the results are very similar across the 4 different universities. The Pearson's correlation coefficients between students' responses from each pair of universities are extremely high, as you can see from the table on the right side. And this probably means that regardless of the country, students are facing similar challenges in remote education. Next slide, please. Turning to the lecturer's perspective, the most critical aspects are students-lecturer interaction, quality of education in remote learning, and preparation of instructors to conduct remote assessments. There was remarkable agreement amongst lecturers across all universities, as shown by the relatively high Pearson correlation coefficients. This again suggests that remote learning gaps are widespread and not attributable to any single local policy or culture. Next slide, please. And finally, we created a map to show similarities and differences between the students and lecturers for each aspect. In this map, the indicator of gap for lecturers is on the horizontal axis, while that for students is on the vertical axis. Each point in the map represents one of the aspects of interest. As you can see, there are some similarities and differences between the two groups of respondents. For instance, both students and faculty ranked academic integrity and quality of education among the most critical aspects. See points 5.3 and 4.3 in the top right area of the map. On the other hand, the students pointed out potential obstacles in receiving timely and detailed feedback. See point 4.2 in the top left area of the map. But this issue wasn't perceived as a major problem for lecturers. Also, lecturers rated student-teacher interaction as more critical, but this doesn't seem to be a concern for students. See point 2.2 in the bottom right area of the map. And to conclude, this result represented a starting point for the further analysis carried out in the later phases of remote project. So, thank you all for your kind attention, and now I'll give the floor to Maria João from A3ES, which, as we said, is the Portuguese agency. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Domenico. So please, Maria, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Marilena, and good morning, everyone. Let's wait for the slides to be on the screen. Okay, so I'll briefly present the benchmark of best practices that we did within the remote project. So as you see on the next slide, our main aim was to identify and analyze good practices from higher education institutions and from external quality assurance agencies across Europe and globally to support the development of effective, inclusive, and trustworthy models of remote assessment. So in the next slide, you see that our methodology had two main stages. So first, we collected examples of good practices that were shared by our project partners and complemented by a literature review to identify additional evidence from European higher education institutions and from external quality assurance agencies. Then we benchmarked these practices using a structured framework focusing on practice description, on the implementation stages, stakeholders involved, resources involved, the assessment and impact of those practices, which were the benefits, the challenges, the lessons learned, and then additional information. And these practices were selected based on their impact, innovation, and scalability. So here I'm not presenting all the best practice, of course, and all the higher education institutions and QA agencies, but as we see on the next slide, we analyzed several best practices in higher education institutions, and different themes and topics emerged. And the main ones that were identified were faculty development, so structure and incentivize training on digital pedagogy, and also remote assessment increases the engagement and teaching quality. Then flexible policies, for example, there are examples of limited remote teaching quotas supporting innovation while maintaining institutional coherence. The topic of academic integrity is very important. So digital tools and hybrid methods reinforce fairness and trust. And of course, communication and preparation. So guidelines, mock exams, contingency plans, they help to reduce the anxiety and support students more effectively. So together, this practice shows a shared European commitment to quality and innovation in remote assessment. Now, on the other slide, we see the main trends on external quality assurance agencies. And the main themes are dedicated evaluation criteria, so specific criteria for remote assessment, enhanced evaluation metrics that include, of course, digital infrastructure and learner support, stakeholder co-development, so involving institutions, QA reviewers, academic staff, and all the important stakeholders. Attention to integrity, privacy, and accessibility, again, is a topic that emerges. And then international cooperation with shared standards and terminology, promoting trust and also comparability across systems. So these developments show that QA agencies are increasingly embedding remote assessment in their review mechanism and expanding the definition of quality to include equity, transparency, inclusion. And then what we did, and we see that on the next slide, we also referenced this practice with quality standards. And these quality standards were developed in the context of the project, and they will be presented by Marilena right after. So you will understand better this comparison that we did. So basically, in the slides, you can see the green check mark showing strong alignment of these practices with the standards for higher education institutions, the purple one showing moderate alignment, and the white dot weak or indirect alignment. And you can see the 12 standards also on the screen. And for higher education institutions, there are different degrees of alignment with these standards that we have identified. In the other slide, we see the alignment with the external quality assurance agencies. So you see the standards for external quality assurance agencies in the top, and here you also see strong alignment with some particular issues, and then some gaps. So there are different degrees of alignment in the areas such as institutional integration, transparency, training, but gaps remain main on the areas of STEM sensitive assessment, formalized appeals procedures, and systematic criteria for remote assessment and for blended formats. So this highlights the importance of continued collaboration between institutions and QA bodies to develop consistent and evidence-based frameworks. So to conclude, we see in the next slide, to summing up all that I said. So higher education institutions have shown remarkable adaptability, investment in faculty development, flexible policies, and digital infrastructures that support integrity. And QA agencies, in turn, are also evolving to integrate e-assessment into their frameworks, involving experts with digital competence and ensuring transparent reports. So we highlight some recommendations. So incentivize faculty training on digital assessment, standardize assessment procedures through clear institutional guidelines and contingency planning, addressing privacy concerns with ethical frameworks and transparent data use policies, and finally, to strengthen the cooperation between external quality assurance agencies to try to, or at least to promote the harmonization of standards and foster trust in transnational context. Thank you very much. Now, Marilena, the floor is yours again.
Yes, thank you very much, Maria, also for keeping the time perfectly. I remind the audience that you can start asking questions if you have any. And in the meantime, let's now give a quick look at the guidelines produced as a final output of the work which has been presented until now. So next slide, please. Okay, so now we will talk a little bit about the guidelines for the evaluation of remote assessment. Next, then. Yes, as part of the remote project, the 3 QA agencies, that is again Catalunya, Utrecht, and ANVUR as coordinator, developed guidelines to help both universities and QA agencies ensure robust, fair, and transparent practices in remote assessment. Our purpose was fourfold: to strengthen assessment in online and hybrid contexts, to foster continuous improvement with adaptable tools, to ensure equity and fairness, particularly for students with disability or with limited access, and to embed digital assessment sustainably within institutional governance and quality frameworks. The guidelines draw on a remote project's outcome and previous European research, notably the TESLA project, which pioneered digital authentication and e-assessment frameworks. As we have already seen, we also benchmarked national and international experiences and built on our real contexts in Italy, Portugal, and Spain, where the pandemic accelerated digital transformation. By combining pedagogical, technical, and evaluative expertise, we aimed at creating a framework that connects earlier initiatives with today's evolving realities and emerging technologies in higher education. Next slide, please. When analyzing online assessment, we identified 3 main areas. First, verifying knowledge and understanding. Second, evaluating practical skills and competencies, especially in STEM, but not only in STEM, where students must apply knowledge in real or simulated contexts. And third, assessing creativity and innovation, allowing learners to demonstrate critical thinking, problem solving, and originality. Across all types, 4 learning dimensions remain central: comprehension, application, critical analysis, and creativity. And to ensure quality, 4 principles guide all online assessment: validity, measuring what it claims to measure; reliability, ensuring consistency and transparency; flexibility, adapting to different disciplines and learners; and fairness, guaranteeing inclusion, accessibility, and gender equity. These are not abstract ideals. They are operational criteria. Institutions must demonstrate that their digital assessments uphold these values, ensuring both pedagogical rigor and ethical responsibility. Let's now look in the following slide at the main online assessment types, each of which requires specific pedagogical and technological tools. For knowledge and understanding, digital quizzes or automated tests work well, but should be complemented by open questions or oral exams for deeper interpretation. For practical skills, especially in STEM, assessment must be experiential, through simulations, remote labs, coding environments, or collaborative projects mirroring real professional contexts. When assessing creativity, portfolios, design challenges, projects to integrate and apply ideas in original ways. In summary, there is no one-size-fits-all model. Effective digital assessment goes beyond replicating paper exams online. It promotes competence, autonomy, and authentic problem solving. Next slide. Now, let's give a look at the standards and guidelines. So our guidelines define 12 standards, expanding the 8 from the TESLA project to create an evidence-based framework for quality in online and blended assessment. They begin with institutional foundation, clear policies, explicit objectives, and a commitment to integrity and transparency. Next come the operational dimensions: reliable system, adaptable tools, particularly for STEM. People are central: informed students, trained staff, and opportunities for peer collaboration. The standards also ensure equitable access, data security, and privacy protection. And finally, they highlight constructive feedback and transparent communication with all stakeholders. Together, these 12 standards contribute to making e-assessment ethical, inclusive, and fully embedded within institutional quality culture. We cannot look at all the standards in this short presentation, but now I will give you a couple of examples. So please, next slide. My first example concerns Standard 1, institutional policies. Each standard follows the same structure: a principle, specific indicators, and clear evidence requirements. This combination ensures the framework is both conceptual and operational, explaining what to aim for, how to achieve it, and how to demonstrate it. So, Standard 1 focuses on institutional policies. Universities should integrate online learning and assessment into their overall mission and governance, ensuring alignment with ethical, legal, and pedagogical frameworks. Indicators include staff training on digital ethics, privacy, and cybersecurity. And evidence might include QA policies, accessibility regulations, or review reports on e-assessment systems. The idea is simple. Quality must be not only defined, but also demonstrated through verifiable documentation. The second example, next slide, please. Standard 5 deals with adaptable digital tools for scientific and technical disciplines, such as simulations of virtual labs aligned with learning goals and academic integrity. Indicators call for accessible, flexible tools and proper staff training. Evidence includes policies on tool selection, evaluations of virtual labs, and user feedback. These measures ensure accountability and continuous improvement across disciplines. The other standards follow, as I said, the same scheme. We cannot delve into them. So next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So the guidelines conclude with recommendations for QA agencies. Agencies should integrate e-assessment into existing QA frameworks, involve reviewers with digital expertise, and ensure transparency in reporting. They are encouraged to promote blended assessment, balancing online flexibility with on-site rigor, especially in STEM. And finally, they should define clear criteria for evaluating learning outcomes and appeals procedures, safeguarding accountability. These steps help QA agencies support digital transformation while maintaining quality, equity, and integrity. And finally, some general remarks, which are summarized in next slide. Here are our takeaways. First, experience matters. The feedback from students and teaching staff grounded the guidelines in real educational practice. Second, our process was a collaborative one, bringing together agencies and universities around shared goals of quality and innovation. So, inspired by STEM, the framework applies actually to all disciplines. Looking ahead, as AI and data analytics reshape education, continuous reflection and updating of the guidelines will be vital. Innovation must go hand in hand with trust, ensuring fairness, transparency, and integrity remain central. Our focus should shift from assessment to enhancement, using evaluation not only to verify quality, but to drive improvement and creativity in learning. And finally, building capacity and inclusion will require ongoing training, dialogue, and shared resources. The remote project has started a journey. Now it's up to the European higher education community to continue it and keep quality in digital education at the center of our collective agenda. Thank you very much. And now I see that there is a question. Can you please, project, okay. I see the question from Marti Casadesus, who says, the study identifies integrity as the main issue among students. Considering that many of them see no problem in downloading books illegally, I would say also articles illegally, do you think we are doing enough to promote integrity? Domenico, maybe you want to answer the question?
It's a very difficult answer from my side because some kind of philosophical issue. Well, on the one hand, it's not difficult. It's not so easy to find a correct balance. And I talk about my direct experience. On the one hand, I want to make all the possible tools and information available to the students. And sometimes this is barely, let's say, against copyrights or something borderline. But on the other hand, we should take a lot of care about what the students do before the exam or during the exam, because sometimes they take advantage of, let's say, some barely legal tools which give them some advantage. So it's a very difficult because the right way is finding the right balance, and this is probably depend on many factors which cannot be formalized so easily. So as you said, it's difficult to find a solution which fits all. Sorry, it's not. I know it's not a very exhaustive answer, but this is my opinion.
Thank you very much, Domenico. May I follow up on this, saying also that we all have a shared responsibility in moving as much as possible towards open access and open science in all our fields, not only in STEM, and this will be also part of the solution, maybe. Not immediate, but hopefully in the future and in the near future. Thank you very much. If there is no other question for the moment, there will be another space for questions and comments at the end of the webinar. So please, if you have any, do put them in the chat, share it through the chat. It is now time for our round table, which will be moderated by Maria Manatos, to whom I now will leave the floor, and she will introduce us the participants of the roundtable, who will give us their views of remote assessment in higher education, and who will, in the end, answer a few questions that will be selected from the audience. Maria, please. I see that there is already a question, but we'll leave it for the end, and I give the floor to Maria.
Thank you, Marilena. So welcome to our roundtable. I'll have the pleasure of moderating today's discussion, and we are joined by three speakers. We will bring three complementary perspectives on remote assessment and on higher education generally. So those of the student, the academic, and the quality assurance community. So first we'll have Frederic Marimon, who is a tenured professor at International University of Catalunya from the Department of Business Administration. We will have the student, Marta Correia, recently completed her bachelor's degree in industrial engineering and management, University of Minho in Portugal. She's currently the local responsible of local group Minho and the vice president of education of the board of European students of industrial engineering and management. And last but not least, Noèlia Castillo is a senior advisor in the Quality Assurance Department of ACU Catalunya, the Agency for the Quality of the Higher Education System in Catalonia. And since our time is limited, I invite our three panelists to reflect on two key questions related to our previous discussion today. And the first question, which is directly linked to the question that we had from Marty, which is about fairness and integrity. So, how can we ensure academic integrity and equity in online assessments? And how do we make remote assessment to make sure that remote assessment is not only secure but also fair and inclusive? I don't know. We have some problem with the sound here, but I don't know if it's my problem or but if everyone is listening well. So let's continue. I think now it's better. And I will say that perhaps we can start with Marta, the perspective of the students, and then maybe we can go to Noèlia and then Fede. Marta?
Thank you so much, Maria João, for the introduction. Regarding your question, I believe that providing the resources to the students is probably the first step in this whole journey of guaranteeing the fairness in online assessments. This is a stick with two arrows, but providing also alternatives for students who live also probably in more remote areas or who don't come from a so comfortable social environment is also something to bear in mind, since we know quite well that the financial environment and stability directly impacts the opportunities that come to our students and how they can in the future also succeed and take all those opportunities. I have also two more points for this one. The transparent instructions from the instructor side and clear grading rubrics. I think this can also help when it comes to the part of the assessment. And lastly, the fact that the institutions provide the tools and support in a sense with the softwares, with for example the Microsoft environment and so on. These are key tools to ensure the fairness when it comes to student learning. And I think those are the points I would highlight.
Thank you very much, Marta. And you can intervene after we hear Fede and Noèlia. Noèlia, if you want to give your
sure. Okay, so thank you for the question, Maria João. Well, I think it's certainly an important issue, since both quality assurance agencies and also universities will share responsibility in this regard. Universities, they have the primary duty to promote ethical behavior among students while discouraging cheating and plagiarism, and of course, ensuring equity. But quality assurance agencies, for our part, we must promote it through our quality assurance processes. So, from a quality assurance perspective, academic integrity begins with clear institutional policies and also a culture of responsibility. Institutions should establish mechanisms to prevent and address plagiarism or misconduct, while also encouraging that students fully understand these expectations. Equally important are systems to verify learner identity and safeguard the credibility of online and blended assessments, issues that have become even more important in the digital era. Over recent years, several agencies and projects have worked to advance in this agenda. In Catalonia, for example, participation initiatives such as the Tesla project helped to advance in this subject. And building on that experience, the remote project now provides an updated framework to strengthen integrity and equity in online assessment, of course. It highlights the responsible use of technologies, including artificial intelligence, and call for regular reviews of digital assessment tools to ensure they remain ethical, secure, and transparent. But equity, of course, is the other important pillar you were talking about. So promoting equity in higher education requires a shared commitment and coordinated action between universities and quality assurance agencies. While universities are responsible for implementing equitable practices at institutional level, quality assurance agencies can provide the external framework, guidance, and accountability necessary to ensure that these efforts are systematic, measurable, and sustained. In short, QA agencies can foster a culture of continuous improvement by encouraging institutions to view equity as a condition rather than an optional add-on. Through external evaluations, benchmarking, dissemination of best practices, we, quality assurance agencies, can incentivize universities to prioritize equity-related goals in their strategic planning. So working together, both actors, we can build a culture in which equity is considered a fundamental dimension of educational quality rather than a peripheral concern. So just to conclude, projects like Remote, I think that are instrumental in translating these principles into practice, and we hope they will help universities integrate ethical and equitable approaches into their quality systems. Because by embedding academic integrity and inclusion into institutional reviews and accreditation processes, quality assurance contributes to a genuine culture of quality across higher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Noèlia. And it's important because we talk a lot about the collaboration that is needed between the different stakeholders. So it's also important to have the quality assurance agencies. But institutions, Fede, they have a very important role in this matter. What can you tell us about this issue, which is, I see on the comments that are generating some questions about fairness and integrity.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you also to Marta and Noèlia. You have provided your own view of this topic, very important topic. I will take a wider approach about that. First, I think that we need to change the things. So we cannot do what we used to do in the past. Things are changing very in a quick succession, and we need to do things in a different thing. So this is important. So just to know that we need to take some decisions about this topic. Let's see a little bit about the recent story that so 5 years ago, you remember that we came with the pandemic, everything changed, but suddenly from Friday to Monday, let's say. So we moved to the online very quickly. Maybe we were not ready for that, but we did it, and we succeeded somehow. It was the teaching, but at the same time, we need also to change the assessment and go to the online assessment. It was really very challenging. And a particular topic is this fairness, how to guarantee this topic. This is very important. So for a student, how frustrating it's for a student to get the same mark. I mean, for a good student, for a student who has been preparing the exam and has been working a lot, how frustrating to see that maybe some other student gets the same the mark, a grade, and he or she has been cheating. This is really very frustrating. How to avoid this? As Marta said at the beginning, we can provide some technical issues about that for sure. Noèlia was also insisting maybe we need to provide another more philosophical tools. I mean, this is promoting this good behavior of the students, just to prepare them to be a good citizen. So this means that they need to be honest and to keep the integrity. So this is more ambiguous, maybe a little bit naive. I don't know if we can change, but I think that is the best way, the second one. So empowering the people in order to behave as they need to behave, because in the society, in her workplace, they will need to work in this way. But again, looking back, when AI appeared 3 years ago, it was even worse. So in the sense that we realized that we cannot do the things in the same way. It's not any use to these multiple choice questions, for instance, because AI is doing this very quickly and very effectively. There's no point also maybe just writing an open question. ChatGPT answers very well, so we need to go to another way, which is the way. So this is just to conclude. So this is my last point. So we go to, well, maybe we have two scenarios or two strategies, and between both there are a lot of them. But the first strategy is just to relay, I mean, in the assessment process online. The first strategy could be just rely on AI. So lecturers rely on this and use this intensively in, for instance, in designing the exam. Maybe after that also grading, providing feedback. We need to take care about privacy and all these kinds of things. Okay? So this is, and from the point of view of the students, so they in the exams they should. I say on purpose the word should or must use AI, but in a right way. So this is our challenge, the lecturer's challenge, to show them, to teach them, the students, to use these tools in a good way. And I think that because AI is a good tool just for learning, so maybe in this way, the gap between, let's say, the best students that they know how to use the AI in order to learn better, and also just to writing a better exams, the gap is increasing because the best students they took advantage of this, and on the other hand, maybe let's say the regular students they do not know how to take the full advantage of this. So this is the first strategy is this one. Okay, so using this, relying on the AI, is very challenging because we lecturers need to grade the content in itself of the subject, but also how they are using or how competent they are in using these new technologies, so this is very challenging. So this is the first strategy, and of course the second strategy to assess is going to the old way to do the thing. So provide a piece of paper and a pen, and that's all, and say, okay, here you are, so please complete this exam in the old way. So this is, sorry, I think that I have been extended so much. Thank you, Maria. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I don't know, Marta, if you want to add something or respond to Fede regarding students in this regarding this question.
Can you summarize in a line what exactly was the challenge proposed to students?
Fede, do you want to highlight one of the strategy regarding the position of the student regarding the use of AI?
Yeah. So this is very challenging. There are two moments. One thing is during let's say the learning process. Another one is just when you are writing down, sitting the exam. So this is two different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a very, very valid point. And I think that for that, it's important that the student has his values and the ethics in the place that they should be. And And we can make the most out of AI in that sense when it comes to learning and to summarizing maybe a lot of information, so that we can take the key points of it, and sometimes in all the information we get, there is too much detail that is not going to be useful later. And then when it comes to using AI in the moment of the assessment, it might be not the most ethical use, at least in my perspective. So I think from the student's perspective, it is a question of value. And there's not really a solution from professor's side, I believe, because it's the same thing about the cheating in general. So I really think it's a question of values.
Okay, Marta, thank you very much. If I may add, I think that, and we are talking a lot about the standards and guidelines for these matters, and I think it's important that either students and institutions and QA agencies have specific guidelines, so how to kind of behave and how what path should we follow it, how students can use AI in which specific conditions, what is permitted here. So I think the guidelines can also help students and also professors in this matter. And one last question or reflection, which is about the future. And how do you foresee online assessment? Do you think it will complement or gradually it will replace traditional forms of assessment, and what that would mean for institutions, for students, for QA agencies? Okay, so this is more for the future. So how this can change or not? Fede, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Maria. Yeah, I take the advantage of being the first one, and I would like to, to go again in a very wide approach on this assessment. Well, I think that in the university, so looking in the future, so this is very, very difficult to make to some forecast of how the future will be and how we will evolve and so on. But I think that we need to assess, or first to teach, and after that assessing this, to teach or to influence in our students in three different dimensions. The first one is the one that we are very used, because all the universities from the beginning of the universities, I don't know which was the first university centuries ago, but just all in all our story, the universities are providing some specific content related to law, to economics, to medicine, whatever. But something very specific in order to be a good professional when our students go to the marketplace. So this is just. But this is just one dimension, and we know very well how to assess people in this dimension. Maybe now we need to complement with the online and so on. But I will stress that there are maybe two other dimensions that we should include. It's not so evident. So the first one is this, let's say the vertical dimension on the content, the specific. But the other one should be we need to provide our students how to manage in this world that is more and more complex. So this is, let's say, an horizontal dimension, and we do not assess them about that. And I mean, this world is more and more complex. So I cannot go deep with this, but you realize that there are some politics influencing in this, some. The technology also is erupting, and how, in which way. So or new values like sustainability. So the globalization, the internationalization. Well, so there are some different views, values. so this world is more and more and more complex, and we need to show our students to manage in this new environment. So this is another dimension that I think that we need to go. Okay? And the last one is this is more personal for each student. How they are ready to contribute in this world and to give back again to the society, to be, to provide or to have this purpose in his her job, and how contribute. So this is another dimension. As I said at the beginning of my intervention, this is a very wide reflection. I repeat, so I think that there are 3 dimensions, and we are only focused in the first one. Maybe we should extend and go for the second and even for the third one. So sorry, because maybe it's a little bit out of the
No, it's our reflection about the issue, and we are still learning how to manage this in the present, and I'm just trying to oversee the future. Marta, what do you have to tell us about it then?
Regarding this topic, if it should be a complement or if it will at some point replace the traditional methods, I think it depends on the goal that we are trying. So what we want to assess with this online assessment depends on what we are evaluating. So if we are evaluating critical thinking, analysis, collaboration, creation, use of tools, softwares, and industry stuff that can be viewed by a project, group project, or if we are talking about continuous assessments to encourage progressive learning, I think that these 3 can be assessed by online assessments, while the traditional ones might be mostly for highly theoretical foundations, and I think for basic learning, for example, when we are talking about the first part of engineering, when we're talking about, for example, about the algebra, about the calculus, these things, for this, the traditional methods might work a bit better, since it's very technical, and online assessment might not have this degree of complexity. And I think also the traditional methods might also work better when we talk about external accreditation and certification requirements, since we need to really ensure that it is fair and it is accredited by quality assurance, I believe. And I pass my word on to Noèlia, I believe.
Thank you, Marta. And how the QA community foresee the future in this matter, Noèlia?
Okay, I think I will not give such a wide approach as Fede gave, but yeah, I will be speaking a bit more from a quality assurance perspective. So I think that we foresee online assessment as continuing to expand, but as a complement to traditional forms rather than a complete replacement of those traditional forms. And well, let me explain why. Digital assessment, I think it offers significant benefits like opportunities for flexibility, accessibility, and innovation in evaluating learning outcomes. And well, also particularly through adaptive testing and real-time feedback mechanisms. But we also must take into account their drawbacks, like for instance, online lab simulations and virtual laboratories, they often lack real-world complexity, which means they may not be the most effective way to assess the acquisition of hands-on skills and the laboratory-related competencies. And this is actually noted in the remote project. So for these reasons, we believe that the traditional in-person assessments will likely remain valuable for verifying identity and maintaining academic integrity in certain contexts. And they will also be essential for assessing competencies that require physical demonstration or interaction, as I said, for instance, labs, which this is especially relevant in STEM programs. And well, in addition, I think that it is also interesting to note that oral examinations may become increasingly relevant as they are a way of verifying knowledge and the acquisition of skills and competencies. So, well, as a conclusion, to us, the future of assessment probably lies in a balanced ecosystem, leveraging the scalability and inclusivity of online methods while also preserving the rigor, validity, and trust that is associated with established assessment practices. So just as a last conclusion, quality assurance frameworks will need to evolve to ensure both modalities meet consistent standards of reliability, fairness, and integrity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noèlia. And I think we could continue discussing these and other questions regarding remote assessment, but we will end this roundtable. Thank you very much for your thoughtful contributions. And I think that even in this very short discussion, we've seen how important it is to balance flexibility and trust and fairness on remote assessment, and it will continue to evolve. So thank you very much to our three panelists for sharing their perspectives. And Marilena, it's up to you now. I see we have questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And also thank you, Maria, for moderating this very, very interesting roundtable. And the interest is clearly demonstrated by the fact that we have many questions. We will probably not be able to answer all of them. But as I promised, we'd start with the first one, which was already in the chat before we started the roundtable. That is a question on fraud detection tools. Do they really work to assess whether the student has used AI correctly, for instance, in a written project? Okay, this is, of course, a very up-to-date question and an excellent question indeed. I think I can try to answer it. Fraud detection tools, they can indeed help identify some potential AI-generated or AI-assisted content, but as we all know, they remain imperfect. They may misidentify genuine work. They may miss sophisticated AI use. By the way, AI would need another project. Actually, it's not in our remote work directly, although it is impossible not to mention AI in this context. So for this reason, I think that fraud detection tools should be viewed as supporting aids, not as proof. And as it has already been hinted to during the roundtable, a balanced approach should combine these tools with human judgment. So we're back to human judgment, dialogue with students, and clear institutional guidelines on acceptable AI use. Ultimately, finally, it is a question again of academic integrity, of ethics. So it's a shared commitment to ethics that can truly safeguard the quality and credibility of assessment. So this is at least my point of view, but as we have seen also the students' voice and the voices during the roundtable, I think that this is all we can do to cope with AI. So then there is a question on support given by institutions. And this is an important point because this is one of the reasons why we think that our guidelines can indeed offer help, both to QA agencies and to institutions and to the staff working in institutions. The question says, I'm finding it very difficult to achieve support from my institution for digital evaluation, considering data protection law, especially since there have been student complaints in the courts. I don't know who wants to answer. Maybe Domenico, do you have experiences concerning, how are digital evaluations or digital tools in evaluation seen at your institution? If you can say a couple of words.
Okay, sorry. In the meantime, I was answering in the YouTube chat to another questions privately because of the lack of time, but probably I get your question. So you were talking about the perception of the university about the tools for what? Repeat the question, please, Marilena.
Yes, sure. It was about the fact that the institution does not support digital assessment because of GDPR prescriptions or data protection or prescriptions, and that so it becomes difficult to use these tools in some institutions because of a lack of support.
I don't know. The situation is very heterogeneous. So again, it's in my experience, just limiting myself in the national territory. So I talk about Italy. I've seen a lot of differences from university to university. So it's difficult to make some general statement about this. We can see that there are some leaders university which are more flexible and they offer better tools than others. This is maybe quite obvious a diplomatic answer.
Yes, diplomatic especially. So we cannot, unfortunately, take more questions. I just wanted to mention one comment about one specific experience. So how to use online assessment. A way could be to give the students the answers to the questions in advance. Of course, not the specific answers to the questions that will be then asked for in the assessment session, but much bigger set of answers. It's like in Italy for driving license exams, that you give a list of questions and then only some of them will be asked for in the real exam. This helps the students, may help the students to prepare themselves on all the questions, and then finally the goal is that the students study, not that they get low grades, of course. So this can be, for instance, one way to deal with online assessment or a specific form of online assessment. I would say that it is already quite late, so let's close this Q&A session, and let me thank you to all the participants for their contributions and valuable insights. I think that the discussion highlighted both the opportunities and challenges from many points of view, so ethical, technical, content-related, practical challenges of remote assessment, reminding us that quality, fairness, and integrity remain at the heart of any educational process, so also of remote assessment. So let's continue sharing experiences, monitoring this rapidly evolving field, and refining our practices together. To close the webinar, now I give the floor to Anna Prades from ACU Catalunya. Thank you very much once again. Please, Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marilena. Dear colleagues, what an excellent seminar. I'll do my best to wrap up as efficiently as possible. Since I have the privilege of closing this session, let me just take 1 minute to reflect on the importance of today's theme. More than 30 years ago, Ray Clifford wrote a paper titled, "What you test is what you get." Assessment is key, and when it's remote, it's even more challenging. Even in organizational context, it is said that you get what you reward. And as the old saying goes, the proof is in the pudding, right? You can have a beautifully designed teaching and learning process, but if the assessment is poorly conceived, students will naturally work toward what is being tested, often bypassing the deeper learning activities we hope to promote. And this is one of the reasons of why the remote project, and specifically remote guidelines for monitoring and evaluating remote learning activities, is so valuable. It was born in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic and now concludes at a time when Gen I is profoundly shaping the way we teach and the way we learn. There could hardly be a more relevant or timely topic. Please allow me to sincerely thank you, our speakers, Marilena Maniaci, Domenico Augusto, Maria João Manatos, Frederic Marimon, Noèlia Grifó, Marta Correia, for their insightful contributions. And finally, thank you, all of you, for your interest and commitment to this vital theme. Let us continue working together to enhance and hopefully transform our institutions and the learners they serve.